I went to sleep this past week with a vision of peace, but I awoke to a war zone in conditions of beef. Instead of getting along, getting it on, spitting chrome, splitting domes, steady killing our own ancestors, rolling over more than twice in their graves. Imagine giving up your life and sacrificing in vain. We went from kings and queens and true reflections of God to being killers and thieves, bending laps on his yard. For every slave they set free, they made a slave of the mind. Plantations been redefined, prison changed the design. Cell phones advanced enough to log you onto the net, but at the same time it's starving to death. They done stacked the deck for them and left the color to die. And the more I peep it, I develop blood in my eye. They got us trapped in a cycle of pain, ambition, and violence, predestined for early graves and prison confinement. 5 fingers brought to...
Say, what's cracking, YouTube? It's your boy 16 to life, and I'm back like I'm on a parole violation. Yard down. So I don't necessarily know if you guys have paid attention or not, but this year, I intentionally tried to stay away from Mexican and black issues on YouTube for a couple of reasons, right? First and foremost, because whatever the issue is, it normally blows over in a week or two, right? And then also because it really only puts the people who discuss it on the front lines more than the actual issue. You know what I'm saying? So because these Mexican and black issues are issues a lot of times, in my opinion, that cause people's emotions to override their intelligence, right? A lot of people will jump into these things because they feel a connection to a race or a gang or a hood, and their emotional connection is stronger than the intelligence they use when considering this situation. So this is why a lot of times I have intentionally this year, matter of fact, I haven't even touched any Mexican black issues this year, right? But this one is something that's I felt I wanted to talk about a little bit. You know, it's initially it happened a day or two. I wasn't gonna get into it, but it kind of seemed like it's getting bigger and bigger, and I feel people are missing one important point, right? And so I'm gonna elaborate on this a little bit, just in case for those individuals who don't know what I'm speaking about. I'm gonna give you a somewhat of a background story real quick, and also forgive me if I don't have all the facts right, you know, because honestly I have watched this kind of from afar. I've checked it out a little bit here and there, a few videos related to it, a couple of minutes, but besides that I didn't really dig deep into it until earlier today, right? And so my facts may not be 100% correct, and in the event they are not, I apologize for that at the beginning. Now let's get into this discussion, right? So it's to my understanding that the 8 Trade Gangsta Crips and the 5 Trade Gangsta Crips was playing a basketball gang among themselves. They had put together a little get together or whatever, right? And they're at this particular park playing basketball. You know, they're out there doing what they do, chilling, having fun, so on and so forth, right? Eventually, the police come over there. The police come over there on some BS. Basically, it's too many of y'all over here, break this stuff up. You know, they come like they always come a lot of times when they see people having fun in these urban areas, and they make up an excuse to try to break up the situation, right? So they're over there doing that. They're breaking up the situation, right? This is a area that is predominantly you have a large, because I don't want to say it's their hood, because even though in our neighborhoods, and I had that same thinking, we believe these hoods belong to us, right? But really they don't. They belong to the city, right? So they're in an area though where predominantly is frequented by certain particular gangs, of course, and then us as gang members or former gang members, we tend to believe that area is our hood, right? So this is what's going on. So now you have a Mexican dude, right? I've heard people say that he's a Southsider. I do not know how true that is, right? I heard somebody says he has a page called South Central Audits. And so what those dudes do, when I say those dudes, I'm talking about people who have these audit channels. They'll walk around with these cameras and they will film the police in situations where the police are encountering other individuals, and they will basically make sure the police don't disrespect or trample the rights of the citizens, right? So I watch these pages from time to time, and I like these pages because the average citizen does not necessarily know his rights. And when you don't know your rights, the police will trample over your rights. You know, the police will say something, and a lot of times these auditors prove that the police don't know what they're talking about, But the police, being the police, knowing that a lot of people will respect uniform right off the bat, the police will say anything a lot of times, and they're 100% wrong. These auditors study the law, they know the law, and so they basically are watching the police and making sure the police stay within the law, right? And so this auditor pulls up, and now he's recording. I believe he's there once again to record the police. Now you have an individual who is from 5 Trey Gangsta Crip by the name of Tone. Tone has an encounter with this dude eventually, right? As this dude is recording the police, basically they have an encounter, and I'll get into that later on, right? They have an encounter, and eventually Tone is caught on camera saying something that is disrespectful to the Mexican gangs, all Mexican gangs. He disrespects the Southside Mexican gangs. He doesn't disrespect this specific gang where this individual was from. He says something that is disrespectful to all Southerners, gang members, right? And so at some point in time, it comes to the attention of Avalon Blue. Avalon Blue is an individual who is older and obviously has some type of influence with the 5 Trey Gangsta Crips, right? So Avalon Blue eventually goes on, and he comes out there and pretty much says in a nutshell that, hey, my homeboy was wrong. He shouldn't have said that. And, we're issuing an apology for him. He's going to apologize, so on and so forth. We don't support what he said. Something to that effect, right? Pretty much is basically he is saying that his homie was wrong for disrespecting all the Southsiders, right? Now, in his particular hood, they share immediate territory with another Mexican gang, right? And so what I get is he is trying to stop something from escalating and creating an issue that has never been between his hood and the Hispanic gang that they share an immediate territory with. Now, I get that, right? I get that because when you are, older and you have an influence in your hood, and you're, if you're seen as a chief or whatever, right? One of the things that you must do as an older or an elder, you are supposed to try to eliminate the BS, because if there is a war that breaks out between his hood and the Mexican hood, we have to keep in mind that those are his homeboys on the front line. Those are people that he has known all his life, going to prison, potentially losing their life, getting shot, doing all that. And so that is his first, or that's one of the important things that he is tasked with, right? Keeping down the BS when it is reasonable, right? And when it's unnecessary. So I get that part, right? I get that part of it. But a lot of people disagree with that, feeling that, that makes him look weak, that makes the blacks look weak, so on and so forth. But once again, those individuals are not going to be on that front line in the event a war breaks out behind what the Southsiders who he shares his community with would take as disrespect, right? But so he issues some apologies or whatever he does, right? He throws this up on YouTube. A lot of cats feel that, you shouldn't talk on other business or whatever. But when you put your hood business out there on YouTube, because even though the disrespect was on YouTube, but him coming on, making several videos and addressing it publicly, of course, it opens up the door for everybody to have an opinion on that, right? And so then at some point in time, he goes on to make a video or two issuing an apology, and he gets his homeboy, the dude who said the disrespectful things, he brings him on, right? And they make a video in relation to what happened. Right now, I watched the video, and I feel that a lot of people are missing out on one important thing. And so I'm going to react to that video. I'm going to show you guys that video, and I'm going to probably do a lot of pausing because I have to break down certain things I feel is important or whatever, right? So anyway, let's get right to that video. And also, y'all, shout out to 2 Gangster for YouTube. We getting this video. He always have a lot of fire street related content. So once again, shout out to 2 Gangster for YouTube. Even though your voice is irritating.
What it do, YouTube? What it do? So Tone finally gives us his side of the story. We now identified that the Mexican was a Southsider. His channel is called South Central Audit. Tone said he used a derogatory word used to diss blacks. He was upset that I was in the way of him recording. That's why I got mad and said what I said. But in reality, he doesn't feel that way about all Southsiders.
Like I tell y'all, man, I get chewed over here on the east side, man. Everybody big in the program. With that being said.
Okay, and also, so now this is the dude, Tone, who got into it with the Southsider, right? I guess this is one of the videos that Avalon Blue made, and he went and got his homeboy Tone, right? Now, the audio on this is horrible, right? So hopefully you guys can hear it, but like I say, if not, I'll be interjecting often, you know, to just basically, you know, give my opinion on what's being said.
We got my homeboy Tone right here. First off, homie, I want to say, I'm sorry about even saying the word clown in the situation. I just want to say the name of the
Okay, so you may not even heard that, right? So what he's saying is, first and foremost, he's apologizing Blue to his homeboy Tone, because when he initially addressed it in one of his videos, he said, man, what that clown said, we don't respect, or we don't feel like that, or somewhat along those lines. So he was addressing in the video, talking about Tone, and he called him a clown. So now he is apologizing to him for disrespecting him.
So right now, you've been charged with speaking out of Avalon policies and get called internet.
So now he just told him that basically you being charged with speaking out of turn or speaking out against Avalon policy, right? So what I take in that is, they have a lot of structure in their hood. They have certain rules that individuals who represent their neighborhood must provide by, right? And I definitely think that's a good thing, because it gives everybody structure, and it gives everybody a commonality in mindset. And it doesn't, you know, and sometimes the structure is well, not sometimes, structure is always needed, especially in gangs. And you don't see that in a lot of California gangs, right? We have things that we're not going to do, and it's not going to be permitted, because that will keep us out of unnecessary bull stuff. So I think that's a good thing. But let's go.
We see the three group of the
okay, so now right here, Tone, and we can hear him a lot better. He's explaining his side of the story, right?
Camera people right there. And then we right there, we on the phone and shit and recording. And the nigga was like, this monkey stayed getting in front of the camera. So I turned around and I'm like, what? And me and the homie, we start tripping. And then he walked back to where the police was at. And then he like, what you gonna do? So I'm tripping on cuz. And then he clicked the little gun shit. He like, man, you better back before you get shot. Yeah, and then I just started going in on her.
I seen a lot of people in the comments say,
now to me that was extremely important, right? And I think a lot of people kind of didn't touch on that, right? So let's go back again.
Right now, you've been charged with speaking out of Avalon policies and get called internet. And that's when we see the three group of the camera people right there. And then we right there, we on the phone and shit and recording. And the nigga was like, this monkey stayed getting in front of the camera.
So now he's talking about what initially kicked off the confrontation between him and the Mexican dude. Now, I do not know if before Blue initially came on there and somewhat apologized for his homeboy and said they don't agree with the word he used, and you know they gonna fix the situation. I don't know if he had talked to his homeboy or not. His homeboy is giving his side of what happened, so I don't know if this is just for the camera or if Blue had already heard his homeboy's version of what went on, right? So he said that he's standing there in front of the dude, you know, minding his business, doing whatever he's doing. The Mexican dude who has the channel South Central Audit at some point said these monkeys keep getting in front of the camera. And so that's when Tone turned around and he had words with the Mexican dude, and he said the disrespectful thing toward the Sureños, right? Or Southsiders. So I don't see it was nothing wrong with this dude reacting the way he reacted if we gonna take the whole entire situation in totality, right? I'm asking everybody, Mexican and black, put your emotions to the side. It's time to man up. Put your emotions to the side. Don't forget all that ruling with a particular side, because that particular side, they look like you or that's your race. Let's keep stuff on the up and up. This is why it's so much BS, right? Let's keep stuff on the up and up. The Mexican dude had every right to be there as everybody else, right? If he wants to record and all that, even though him being there and recording might not be well received, but that's something that he has to deal with in the event it happened to go bad. But where the Mexican dude was 1,000% wrong is when he said these monkeys keep getting in front of the camera. Now it's bigger than gangbanging, right? Even though the Mexican dude didn't have a problem, I don't believe, wherever he was from, with those dudes, or he wouldn't have been over there recording it. The main thing is when he disrespected the entire black race, because that's what you do when you say these monkeys keep getting in front of the camera. So now when he hears this, he turns around, right? And so now at this point, in my opinion, it's bigger than gang banging, because being a black man, to me, comes first before being a Crip, Blood, Pyru, any type of gang affiliation, right? Because at least in my era, that is the first pride that I can remember that was instilled in us. You were proud to be a black man first, right? That you and I'm assuming everybody, you know what I'm saying? Having pride in your race does not mean you have to hate another race, but that was the first thing that was instilled with me in my teachings is you are proud to be a race, right? And you protect your race, and that goes for everybody. So when this dude hears this dude disrespecting the race, it's bigger than gangbanging, because once again, I was black long before I decided of joining any street gang organization, so on and so forth, right? So for this dude, you didn't disrespected the race, everything else. Anything now is open to be disrespected, in my opinion, if you gonna disrespect my race. Anything, if you disrespect my race, anything I choose to say disrespectful toward you, it's open door policy now, because I believe in this, right? If you have a problem with another individual, right? Whether you guys are the same race or different races, keep it between you guys, right? The Mexican dude had 1,000 things he could have said if he chose this dude needed to be disrespected. He could have disrespected this dude. He could have called him cuss words, all types of things, but he did not have to make it racial. He could have called him the B word, the P word, a whole bunch of stuff. He could have disrespected this dude actually without making it racial or gang related, the Mexican dude, if he chose to, right? You talk about whatever to disrespect this dude, right? If you want to, but you don't have to make it racial. So when you make it racial, once again, this individual has every right to deal with the situation however he chooses to, especially in a verbal way. So once, in my opinion, Avalon Blue gets the totality of the situation, there is no way you can find your homeboy at fault, because later on in this video, Avalon Blue still goes on to say, I find you guilty. And the situation will be dealt with off camera, right? Now, in my opinion, Avalon Blue should have reached out to those immediate dudes, Hispanics that they share territory with, because of course you don't want to create a war, gunship, back and forth, all that when it doesn't have to. But he could have reached out to them off camera, explained the totality of the situation, right? And at the end of the day, it should have just been a wash. Okay, that dude disrespected the race. he disrespected the race. No, he may not feel like that about the entire Southside population, but in the heat of the moment, he was angry, and so he said what he felt he needed to say to disrespect this dude back, right? Because there have been times in myself, and I have learned through trial and tribulation, right? Growing up, especially when I hit the county jail, an individual would say something to me, and I would diss his whole entire hood. But now, if you have dissed the whole entire hood, now you have opened the door for that whole entire hood to disrespect for you and deal with you however, right? So even if 4 or 5 months down the line, right, one of them dudes from the hood that I dissed, he comes through there and he heard that I dissed his hood and he wants a fade, I have to give him that, even if he's 6'7", 320 pounds, if that's the way he feels, right? Oh, you diss my hood? So what I should have done is just kept my argument and my disrespect aimed directly on the dude. I could have called the dude busters. I could have called the dude marks, cowards. You know, even if I wanted to, I could have even talked about the dude's mama. Because now that's, because when you disrespect the dude, or at least I did, my whole thing is to get this dude angry enough to want to fight. That was the whole motive behind my disrespect, right? So now I found different ways to go about that without bringing this dude's entire hood into it. And so the same way the Mexican dude could have found ways to disrespect this dude if he felt that was necessary without disrespecting the entire black race. So in my opinion, there's no way, because later on in the video, so let me play the video. Later on in the video though, this dude, Avalon Blue, goes on to say, I find you guilty and it's going to be dealt with off camera, right? So to me, the implication was, and what was implied to me is that this dude is going to get a physical discipline for what he said. But once again, Blue, in my opinion, has lost sight of the totality of the situation. Man, I stood up for the race. Damn the hood. I stood up for the race. This dude disrespected the race. And so to me, that's what's important. So, once again, he could have reached out to those Southsiders in that community, hash things out and explain why Tone said what he said, right? But, you have a lot of individuals who deeply disagree with Blue for many reasons, right? And listen, let's not confuse the difference between gangs dissing gangs. You may see a Mexican dude disrespect a black dude, or you may see a black dude disrespect the Mexican dude, and they happen to be from different gangs, but it's on a gang level. It's gang disrespect. It doesn't hop into the realm of racial disrespect. But like with the situation where the dude was making the hood vlog, the black dude and the Mexicans dudes jumped out from avenues, whatever, and they disrespected Compton. They didn't disrespect the blacks. If my memory serves me right, they disrespected Compton. They left it, even though they say that the gang that the Mexican dudes was from don't like blacks. But he still left it. He still left it in a gangbanging sense. It never got racial. But you don't see, still in all, and then I believe recently we just seen, which is a little bit different, 2 Mexican dudes leaving an apartment. I don't know exactly where they was, maybe in Tustin, California, but wherever they was, it's a black dude going in, and the Mexican dudes disrespected the black dude along racial lines. They called him the N-word. To me, it didn't even appear as if the black dude was a gang member. So those are 2 different things, right? But in neither one of those situations did we see the Mexicans come out and issue an apology. Now, an apology wasn't necessarily needed in the hood vlog situation, because to my recollection, and I could be wrong, but to my recollection, they dissed those dudes along gang lines, which happens in the gang banging world. That's to be expected, right? But anytime you have seen Mexicans diss blacks, along racial lines. There is no apology that has came out and been made. We have seen it happen at least twice and possibly more when the Hoovers beat up the corn person or whatever it was, even though that was not an attack along racial lines. I don't think any racial insults was uttered and yelled when that attack happened. You still seen the Hoovers double back and they disciplined their homies and they apologized for what happened because it could have been viewed as racial and it could have turned to something. So we have seen the blacks go out and issue apologies in these situations. But correct me if I'm wrong, we haven't seen the Southsiders issue apologies and force their people to do so, right? And so this is something that a lot of blacks feel is wrong because it never happens on their side, right? And this is the thing that they feel. A lot of blacks, it makes us look weak as a whole. It's just one reason among many why this apologizing situation shouldn't have happened, right? 2 days ago, I believe I was on Instagram, and I seen where you had a Mexican dude standing outside some apartments, and he had a picture of a dude who had robbed his girlfriend, pushed his girlfriend down, took chains off her neck, took a whole bunch of money she took her wallet, and her wallet contained $1,500. And he was searching for this dude outside of his apartment, right? Just so happened the dude that he was searching for who had robbed his girlfriend was a Mexican. And I almost saved that to my, I have a little section where I save certain things when I think, later on I can use it to implement into my videos, right? Or whatever, for whatever reason, as a point maker. And I almost saved that, right? Because I know that the way things are, I could have used that later on to make a point. And the point that I would have made is things happen, right? If that dude had been black who robbed that Mexican girl, everybody would have been in an uproar on the Mexican side, right? Now the Mexican dude whose girlfriend was robbed, he was saying in the video, basically, why did you rob my girlfriend? You're weak for robbing a woman because you viewed her as an easy target. It was an easy come up. It was an easy lick. And a lot of times on both sides, when you have one race rob somebody else from another race, it's not racial. It's what the Mexican dude stated because it seemed like an easy job. It seemed like a quick come up on some cash. So people will tend to get that point crossed up when it's racial because now they are emotionally charged by the situation. And so I would have used that video just to point out and say, see, this here is one race robbing a person from the same race, even though it's a woman robbing a woman of the same race. So you guys can't make every situation racial if it happens to be between two different races, because the point is people rob when they think it's an easy situation. When you have a person that victimizes, a lot of times that person is not victimizing along racial lines. That person is victimizing, robbing and taking whenever he feels that it's an easy lick, man. One quick analogy that I like to use is when the lion is out there hunting, the lion don't always chase the most healthiest antelope or whatever he's chasing. Sometimes he might chase the little baby calf, or he might chase the old antelope with the leg injury because it's easy. When you out there victimizing, doing what you doing, you are picking the easiest thing to victimize. It's not by race all the time. Sometimes it might be, but not every situation, right? And so that's the point that that's the point I would have tried to make. But I told myself I don't want to keep continually getting caught up in this racial stuff because people view it too emotionally, in my opinion. And at the end of the day, my face is on the situation. 2-3 weeks later, people then forgot about that, but they might see me a month down the line, a year down the line, and they upset. Oh yeah, 16 to life. You spoke on that situation. Now I'm set to deal with a situation. Like I say, man, I be out and about, man. Shout out to my my Mexican partner. I don't even know who he is, right? He just watches my YouTube a lot, right? He happened to see me the other day. I went to Knott's Berry, Soak City, right? And he was cool. He didn't even come up to me and say, what's up, Chill, or whatever. You know, he kept it play. I guess he said, you know what I'm saying? I'm going to just let Chill enjoy his day with his grandkids. But when I left, hopped in the car because I left my phone in the car, you know. So I hopped in the car. Of course, first thing I do, I check my YouTube. 19 minutes. He had just posted something 19 minutes from the time I checked my phone, and it said, hey, Chill, what's up, Soak City 2026 or whatever, you know, respect, salutes or whatever, right? He was basically just saying, hey, Chill, I seen you at Soak City, shout out to you, man, and you and the family, you know, enjoy your day, so on and so forth. So my point is, man, I be somewhere everywhere, right? And sometimes, you know, everybody I run across may not agree. Everybody I run across may not be happy with my videos. And so, you know, then it's left to me to deal with a situation. People who don't make these videos and don't do YouTube, they may not understand that, right? But back to this situation. What Blue done, I would have not done. I would not have, once I got the entire situation. And this dude is responding to the disrespect of the race. I would have not came on here, encouraged my homeboy to apologize, put my business all out there on YouTube or whatever. You know, I would have maybe reached out behind the scenes, told the dude, hey man, he doesn't feel like that, but this is why. You know what I'm saying? And I would have did things differently, right? Because there is no need, once again, to go to war. You know, you have a lot of people, especially blacks who are not from California. They like to make all these type of comments and stuff from the safety of their living room and this and that. But you're not out there on the front line. You know, you're not out there shooting, risking your freedom and this and that. And then, you know, you get caught up in this gang situation. You lay somebody down, you know, you get 150 years to life. And then a month or two later, everybody forgets about you. Now you in there struggling and stuff. You know what I'm saying? You in there, you know, trying to buy a soup, $2 or $3, you know, for a top ramen soup and all that. So people have a lot to say, but they out of the way. You know, if you're not on the front line, if you haven't experienced all that, it's you know, it's probably better to reserve your opinion if you have not went through it. People are always talking about what they would do and what they will do, but they doing it from the safety of their living room. It's very different, right? So once again, I don't disagree with the fact Blue is trying to prevent beef and tension and potential violence going back and forth that doesn't have to be. But I think that there are better ways to do it. And I also think you have to take the totality of the situation in hand. You cannot disrespect, admonish, and definitely not discipline your homeboy once you get the entire story. It's okay to be a little upset when you initially hear it, and you may make a video without getting the full information. But once you get the full information and you hear that the Mexican disrespected the blacks, calling them monkeys, nah, man, I'm not just to be upset with my homeboy, not even a little bit. Anyway, man, look, y'all already know what it is. It's your boy 16 of Life. Resume normal program.